Someone move that?
I move that we move items 10.21 and 10.22 up in the budget or up in the agenda rather, to sit just before 7.4. Is that where we're wanting it?
Yes. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
And that is Commissioner Thomas. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Any questions on that? Not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. Before we go any further in the agenda, I'm just going to suggest that we introduce everyone to Superintendent Jason Popick at the RCMP. He's here in replacing in an acting position for Chief Christie. So welcome, Jason. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on with the agenda.
Good afternoon, all. My full-time job, I'm the Federal Criminal Operations Officer. So basically everything in federal policing rolls up through me. I did work in the district from 2016 to 2019. I was the ops inspector for East and West. So I am familiar with the district and the operations. I've never been to a virtual meeting. All our BOPC were downtown in the past. I do still stay connected with Chief Kinsella. He is the head of the PEC committee, and through CIROC, I'm the CIROC committee that interfaces with the province and the municipalities. But happy to be here.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll now move forward with the business arising out of the minutes. I don't think we have any, but if anyone would like to bring anything forward. Seeing none, we'll move on to a call for declaration of conflict of interest on any of the agenda items. Seeing none, we'll move forward to 7.1, the Board of Police Commissioners report on the Mass Casualty Commission findings. We'll offer the floor to our policy advisor, Josh Bates.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so the report in your agenda package originated from a motion passed during our April meeting shortly after the release of the Mass Casualty Commission final report. And just as a reminder, the motion asked me to prepare a report outlining 3 key elements. So the first is the major factual findings of the MCC report within the board's statutory jurisdiction. The second is the recommendations of the MCC report that are within the board's statutory jurisdiction. And finally, I was asked to provide any other information that I consider to be relevant. So I'll review these 3 sections of the report one by one, but first, I don't suspect that this is news for anyone, but the Mass Casualty Commission was an independent public inquiry set up to examine the mass casualty that took place here in Nova Scotia in April 2020. The final report and recommendations were released earlier this year, and the final report contains 7 volumes, and most but not all of the material in this presentation is from volume 5 of that report, which focused on policing. Of course, we can't look at the MCC final report in isolation of 4 other public safety reports that impact the work of this board. So in addition to the MCC report, we have the Street Checks report, otherwise known as the Wortley report, which was received by this board in 2019. Since that time, of course, the board has received regular updates on progress made towards achieving recommendations in that report. Next, we have the defund report received by the board early last year. Also important is the renewed public safety strategy endorsed by Regional Council in March of this year. And finally, of course, we have the police transformation study considered by the board just a couple of months ago in June. So now on to some findings that are relevant to the board. Chapter 11 of Volume 5 contains several specific recommendations to revitalize police boards, which are outlined on this slide and the next slide. These recommendations include mandatory provincial training, funding to seek legal advice and to conduct research, ensuring boards are fully staffed, and an independent website with contact information of commissioners.
Josh, can I just interrupt for a moment? Are we supposed to be seeing slides?
Yes, are you not seeing slides?
No.
My apologies.
There we go.
Okay, my apologies. I thought that, okay, let me see. Okay, I think this is where we are here. So the report also recommends holding meetings in spaces easily accessible to the public, establishing stronger relationships with the community, and ensuring police board members are fairly compensated. The report also highlights the importance of publishing police policies online. And this recommendation is consistent with recommendations in the defund report and a motion passed by the board in August of 2020. And there's a good news story here because since this spring, the HRP has begun regularly releasing policies online as they're refreshed and improved. And there are now, I believe, 15 policies posted publicly on the HRP website. And there's some more good news in that the board began acting on many of these recommendations even before the MCC was released. For example, beginning last fiscal year, the board began receiving funding for ad hoc legal advice and for a staff position to provide policy support. As we know, all meetings take place in public, usually at Alderney Landing, and are all live streamed. And of course, the board is also fully staffed and typically meets monthly, if not more. And regarding compensating board members, I'll just say that my understanding is that there's an ongoing review of all municipal boards and committees of HRN. And so this issue will be looked at within the context of that review. Nearly every recommendation in the MCC offers a general touch point to the board's statutory mandate. So in the spirit of the Police Transformation Study's recommendation to implement a fully integrated operating model of police service, MCC recommendations that are directed at the RCMP present an opportunity for these recommendations to also be explored by the HRP. And this would help ensure that there's a consistent level of service delivery across both police agencies. The report I prepared that's in your agenda package lists recommendations that are specifically directed at police services as opposed to the RCMP only. I'm not going to list all of them here, they're in your report, but there are recommendations related to a broad suite of issues, including intimate partner violence, victim services, information sharing, community policing, among others. And in the spring, Regional Council adopted a recommendation to participate in a multi-sectoral council established by the province. So forming this council was another recommendation in the MCC report. Now, finally, the third clause of the motion asked me to focus on other relevant information. And I use my discretion here to focus on alignment with other public safety reports, since this will drive much of our work going forward as a board. A very preliminary analysis of this work reveals 5 immediate areas of alignment. And these are third-party reporting, mental health, which of course the board considered at our May meeting, use of force, police policies, which I covered briefly already, and police culture, which is a theme in all reports. And this is a nice segue to our final slide here and the report's recommendation, which is to identify further areas of alignment across the 5 reports. The recommendation calls for an additional staff report, which will help inform the board's work going forward. Some of this work has already begun, and I showed that some of you today, but we'll need collaboration across the Community Safety Office, both police services, and the board to determine whether and how to move forward on various recommendations contained in all of the reports referenced in this presentation. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much, Josh. So I'm going to ask that, okay, I didn't notice whose hand went up first, so I'm going to go by virtue of left to right for now. Gavin, sorry, Harry, I'm going to put you on first and then Gavin. And then I'll take a speakers list after that. Harry, go ahead. Can't hear you, Harry. Nope. Not
Why don't
hearing
you
it.
start with Gavin, and then I will,
There we go. Gotcha.
you can hear me now? Oh, great, okay.
Yes.
I'll just put the motion on the floor, is that all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'll move that the Board of Police Commissioners direct the policies, pardon me. I'll move that the Board of Police Commissioners request that the CAO direct the policy advisor for the Board of Police Commissioners to work with Community Safety Office, HRP, and RCMP to, number one, identify areas of overlap between recommendations and actions contained, or the report, defund report, public safety strategy, Mass Casualty Commission final report. And number two, prepare a staff report outlining these areas of overlap and associated recommendations for consideration as a part of the board's 2023-2024 work plan.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Critchley, seconded by Commissioner Blackburn. Any speakers further? Harry, would you like to continue your few minutes?
Yeah, I'll just make a brief comment. I just want to say thanks to Josh for going through these reports and identifying these areas of commonality. I think they're obviously all things that the board has been looking at in recent years, which is very positive. I wonder, obviously I was the one to put the motion on the floor, but I wonder, Josh, as to a possible amendment. I know that there was some reporting in the news just this week that they're in the process of appointing members to the committee that's kind of going to oversee at the implementation of all the MCC reports. I know that that's being chaired by retired Justice Oland. So I wonder, maybe it's not directly connected to this, but it would be very important, I would suggest, for the board to be getting updates about the progress of that committee. And so, I mean, I don't know if I can, maybe Marty could tell me or Ian could tell me, but if I could amend my own motion in such a way as to ask you to simply make some efforts to kind of keep track of the progress of that committee and reach out to them for the purpose of trying to get some kind of regular contact and sense of what they're doing. I think that would be quite valuable.
Can
Marty?
you hear me, everyone?
Yeah. Yes.
I guess the only issue with that is this comes as a staff recommendation. And so to amend it, you have to, by the rules, you have to defeat the motion that's there and then make your amended motion, Harry. So.
Okay. I guess maybe I'll ask Josh just about, does that something he thinks he could take on, trying to establish some connection with that multi-sectoral committee? I know perhaps the city's already doing that. Just before we go through that.
Yeah, I'll defer to the CAO and Bill that they might have had some contact on that. But what I can add is that I actually met just this week with the Executive Council office. They reached out to me on the MCC report. So I received that update, I think, just before it hit the news. And I had the same thought that I think this is something that we would do as a matter of course to stay connected to that work. I'm not sure if it needs to be part of a motion. I'll, of course, put that in the bill of the committee or the board if they wish to put that forward as a motion. But I see that as being just part of the work and something that I would be doing anyhow.
Okay, so I'll just say in the interest of time, I'm not going to make an amendment. I won't go through the process of defeating the motion. Just I understand just on your reassurance that that is something that you'll look at doing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Critchley, just before we leave that piece, can you tell me what the name of that committee is again?
I actually don't know the name of the committee.
Okay, all right.
I think Josh.
I actually have that. It's the Progress Monitoring Committee.
Program. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Giles.
Thanks very much. This is directed to Josh. Josh, a lot of the MCC report, as it relates to police commissions generally, not just ours, but police commissions generally across the province, indicates that we and they have to change. We have to morph. We have to become more independent. We have to have more tools, likely more time to do the assigned tasks. And we saw much of the same thing in the Deloitte report, 10 of 40 pages of which the most significant discrete element of the Deloitte report made much of the same recommendation, made much of the same findings. When I hear you present, I get the sense that that stuff is buried, and I don't use that word as a pejorative, just as a descriptive and observation. Much of that work gets buried in with a bunch of other reforms which are going to take place. You don't say to a public agency that it's got to change, got to morph, got to become more independent, got to be able to do more over more time, more comprehensively, without it intending to be a priority. So how does that become a priority? What is the timeline for the deliverable? And how many people have to bless the deliverable before it becomes that? We know that much of what we do is dependent on provincial statute. Some of what we do is dependent on municipal government. Those two have to work hand in hand, neither of which is anything other than cumbersome and slow moving. So how do we have some assurance that what we are as a public body gets some priority and the changes which are being urged on us actually get made?
Sure, yeah, I'm gonna defer to the CIO and then I'll jump in as needed. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh. So the province, is my understanding, would be taking the lead on the broader strengthening or improving governance around boards of police commissions. We would probably have an input role in that. I know work has started, I believe, because each municipality did receive a survey to fill out about their board of police commissioners and how it's working and the policy around it, essentially. So that piece of work would be led by the province. The question with respect to the composition, the numbers of people on our board of police commissioners, compensation for board of police commissioners, that is all something that the municipality has in their purview under bylaw P100. So there are some pieces that we'll be able to do in a very timely fashion. There's others that will be waiting to move in lockstep with the province and with other municipalities that have boards of police commissions. And Bill may want to add to this too, I suspect.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, CIO. Hello, Chair, Council. I've had discussions with the Department of Justice in relation to the work that's going on with HRM and also with Mr. Traves and legal, offering our assistance or our participation in anything that they want to do. I had Haley Creighton in my office today talking about some additional governance issues that are associated. So I understand there are things moving in the background but she assures me that they are moving. So I don't have any more detail other than as you know, the announcement of this committee and the fact that there is some work being done in Department of Justice right now to start to move this thing forward. They're kind of, I guess, aligning the ducks, if I could use that expression. But I'm reasonably confident that it is moving. I guess we will find out in the course of time how fast that does move, but there seems to be interest and to move that forward.
Thank you. Any further commissioners? Oh, Josh, go ahead. You want to speak further?
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add to that is around board training, which of course is an explicit recommendation in the MCC report. And I've been in touch with the province, the Department of Justice, before the report was released, and around board training that the province has on offer, and also since the MCC. And the response I got since the MCC is that they're revising that training to take into account the recommendations. And I followed up with them just last week, and I'll continue to follow up because I see that as essential for this board to be providing, the governance function that we're mandated to do.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I see, Gavin, you still have your hand up. Is that just, you want to speak again, or do you want,
Yes, I want
Yeah.
to speak again.
before we do that, I'll see if anyone else has an interest in speaking. Okay, Gavin?
Two things. I suggest that this whole concept of an enhancement of police commissions be an action item that we keep on our agenda so it doesn't get pushed off into the never land. And I have to say that I'm a bit surprised and a whole lot disappointed that somebody would circulate a survey about us and we would A, not know anything about it, and B, not have any input into how it's responded, if at all. I just think that's kind of like forcing us into the role of potted plants, and it's a somewhat discomforting role, at least for me.
So perhaps the word survey was inferring too much, because it's a one-page list of questions and a one-page list of answers, which we did share with the board chair. And of course, then we leave it up to the chair to determine what's relevant to be circulated to the board. But it was pretty simplistic. It had nothing to do with how the Board of Police Commissioners is functioning. It was more, do you have one? How is it constituted, and how frequently are they meeting? Kind of questions. But I know the board chair has that, and I believe Josh Bates does also. We can get that circulated to the Board of Police Commissioners.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. It was very standardized. It was, very administrative kinds of questions. And that went also through the CAO's office as well. So I can certainly send it out, but it's not earth shattering, that kind of thing. It's not projective at all.
If I could add to that, Chair, the purpose of that, the MCC report noted that there are a number of municipalities that don't even have a functioning board. They haven't appointed people, they don't meet. And so it was really at that level. It really wasn't aimed at this board. It was for those other boards to sort of, I guess, prompt them into actually getting their commissions in place, really.
Go ahead, Harry.
Chair, I just wondered, in the interest of time, we just call a question on this unless there's any further speakers. I just know we have a lot of items.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not seeing any further requests for speakers, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion's carried. Thank you. So we'll move now to 7.2, the Board of Police Commission's Policy Subcommittee Priorities, and we'll also offer that up to you, Josh.
Sure, yeah, I think the recommendation speaks for itself. We're recommending, the subcommittee rather is recommending that the board focus on two areas. So one is extra duty / off duty policing, which is the only policy area that's explicitly referenced in the Police Act. And the second is policing and homelessness, which as we all know is a growing issue of importance in our municipality and in fact cities across the country and around the world. So Commissioner Critchley is the chair of the subcommittee. I'll defer to him if he has anything else to add.
I'll just put the motion on the floor if that's all right. You want me to read it? Or?
Go ahead, Harry. Yes, please.
All right. That the Board of Police Commissioners direct the Policy Subcommittee to adopt the following as its first two areas of focus. One, review the Board of Police Commissioners policies relating to extra duty and off duty employment in consultation with the chief. Draft recommended changes and additions for the board's consideration. And two, in consultation with the chief, draft a Board of Police Commissioner policy relating to policing and homelessness for the board's consideration.
And we have a seconder,
Second.
Commissioner Blackburn. Thank you. Any questions on that? I have just a comment, if I could add that, in that as we start to round out some of the work that the committee will do, it's likely that we're going to start to see you start to project some potential future items that you're going to bring to us. And I think I recall some of the other committees that I've sat on in the legislature, for instance, we would periodically get to see a list of the future, so that if there was something that we as commissioners might want you to consider bringing forward a little earlier, we wouldn't know what we don't know by a motion like this. And I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with it now, but it's just food for thought, that as a list might start to build within the committee, it might be helpful for it to be circulated once in a while to the commissioners, so we can have some insight on what could be percolating to come forward. Thank you. Commissioner Critchley?
Yeah, I'll just clarify, Chair Kent. I mean, this is a future-looking thing. You know, we've had some kind of discussions about these things. I know it was very important to the commission that they provide direction to the committee about the areas of work. So that's what we're hoping to do.
Good, thank you. Not seeing any further indications of questions or comments, so I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The motion's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to the Board of Police Commissioners logo. And I'm just going to, I think, do we have a photo of it that we could put forward, a reminder? Has everyone had a chance to look at it? Just want to suggest that we as a board have never had a formalized logo. And I have been noticing, and Josh has done some research, that a lot of the other boards and agencies do. I think it just adds another level of validity to our board to have something of that nature. It's very recognizable, and it's not the municipal brand, which again identifies that we are separate. So we've had this one created, and it does include the coat of arms and from Halifax Regional Municipality, because we are representing this area. So it's just an official ask to adopt it so that we can utilize it in our formal correspondence and any of our documentations that we might create for the public. So I'll, Commissioner Critchley, sorry, I should have offered the chair to you first so that I can put this motion on the floor. Thank you. So I'll move that the Board of Police Commissioners, 1, request permission from Regional Council to use the official corporate coat of arms of the Halifax Regional Municipality as part of its logo, and 2, subject to Regional Council's approval, adopt the following as its official logo as per attachment 1 of the staff report dated July 5th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Commissioner Thomas? Oh,
Commissioner
sorry.
Thomas. All right, motions on the floor. Any motions on the floor? Any questions or discussion?
Question.
Sorry, Becky.
I was just calling for the question to be called.
Okay, I do have one point quickly, if that's all right.
Yep.
I see at the top it says Board of Police Commission. Isn't our name the Board of Police Commissioners?
I thought that one got corrected.
Maybe it did. The one that I have that was emailed today, it says commission.
Just a second. I thought I had that one corrected on it. So I guess at this stage, let's have a legal opinion on it, because it's a good point. And if the other board members have any comments on that particular one or anything else. So Marty, is there any thoughts from you on whether it's the Board of Police Commission, Halifax Regional Municipality, or if it's the Board of Police Commissioners, Halifax Regional Municipality?
I'd understood that it was the Board of Police, Halifax Board of Police Commissioners.
Okay.
And so I think it's in order. I thought this issue came up, and I thought we did change it properly. Yeah,
maybe
I think it's in order.
Maybe we just don't have the most current version of it.
I see Yemi has his hand up. He's waiting very patiently, so I'll let him speak.
Not on this motion. I just want to take us back slightly, so I'll let you finish this. That's
Okay,
okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I mean, assuming there is a correct version that has the name, right, that addresses my concern. I see the CAO has their hand up.
Yes, I saw a corrected version also. I think there's been a version control issue on the page that get into the package. I suggest you approve the recommendation subject to the amendment that you've noted.
Okay,
I'm good with that amendment. It's a friendly amendment.
all right, I'll amend it accordingly. I guess with the amendment made, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. And now I'll hand it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Yakandojo, you have
Thank you
something.
very much. I appreciate this, and I stand to be corrected. I actually put up my hand prior to concluding motion on 7.2. But I don't know, was went up and came back and I was never called. But we have voted on it. I just want to see if I can say anything regarding any voted motion. If not, then I'll keep my mouth shut. Just a comment.
I would say it's out of order because we have already voted on it. And my apologies if I missed your opportunity to speak. I would suggest, though, it could be taken, your comments could be taken offline, and if they're directed towards something that Josh should consider, not an unreasonable conclusion, or if something you want to bring to everyone. But I think with the agenda package that we have, I'd like to continue if that's okay with you.
It's okay with me, but I think it's worth mentioning. It might not be necessary to adopt on it, but I'd love to mention it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead then.
So I
Be the
just
leeway.
think the number 2, section 2, missed the word, and the suggested word may have been policy related to policing and response to homelessness. I think the word response was missing, and it's critical because I think the police does not deal with homelessness. The policy should be how they respond to homelessness. I just want to put that on. If it's not going to be changed, but honestly, it's okay with me.
Okay. So what I'm going to suggest then, Marty, can you give us a process by which we might be able to amend that? Is it something we can go back to if we have time today, or is it something that could come forward later and have that particular motion amended? Would we have to rescind it and then reoffer it? Are you there, Marty? Okay, I think we've lost him. So what I'm going to suggest.
Part of that broke up for me.
Okay, so you're back. So
Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yeah. So the issue was again?
that in item number 7.2, section
Yes.
2 of the motion, Commissioner Akindoju thinks that we should have the policy related to policing and response to homelessness. So the word response inserted, and we've already voted on the wording as it is now. So in order to revisit that, what would be the process for it?
Well, it can be revisited before the end of the meeting, right?
Okay.
At any time before the end of the meeting, it could be revisited, right? But he's going to need 2/3 of the board to approve that.
Okay, so is there any appetite for doing it right now? If not, if I'm not hearing an appetite and someone specifically, I'd like to carry on with the agenda. If we have a chance to go back, we will. If not, we can look at what we can do in the future.
For me, Jack?
Yeah. Do you have a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, quick question. You know,
I can't, I'm not sure who's speaking, and we can barely hear you. Okay, I'm not aware of who this is, so I'm going to carry on, and perhaps we can have your comments a little later at the end of the agenda if we can come back to this particular motion, if in fact your comments are related to it. So now we're going to go to 10.21. 10.21 is budget process refresh and the Board of Police Commissioners policy update motion. So do we have our CFO, our Director of Accounting, or our Manager of Budget Reserves with us? I think Andrea or Kathy, go ahead.
Jerry Blackwood is here with us, as well as Dave Harley and Tyler Higgins from HRM Finance.
Okay, so I think yes, go ahead, Jerry.
I said we're all here and on the call.
Yeah. So if I recall correctly, this one was this one a deferred one, and we had it was around the scheduling of yeah, it's around the adoption of a schedule. So I don't know that we specifically needed a presentation today. What's the will of the board on this one?
Madam Chair, there's no presentation
Yeah.
prepared for this report.
So I need if we are going to consider this motion, we need a okay, Commissioner Blackburn.
I can put it on the floor, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Police Commissioners 1 adopt the schedule outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report dated July 21st, 2023, to be included in the Halifax Board of Police Commissioners Policy and Procedures Manual. And 2, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to annually revise the schedule if required and present it to the board in July prior to the upcoming budget cycle. I so move.
Our seconder? Commissioner Akindozier, thank you. Any questions or considerations on this? Seeing none. Oh, Commissioner Critchley.
I wonder if Jerry could just speak at a high level, explaining the difference between what the budget framework is. I guess want to say I appreciate moving the process out further in time. I think that's really good. I also appreciate that there's 2 options for public participation, but I just wondered if you could explain kind of what the difference is between the budget framework and then the budget itself.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Critchley, through you to the chair. And I think when you talk about the framework, you're talking about the attachment to the report, to the Commissioner's Handbook.
Well, you have following so there's in October there's a presentation of the business plan and budget framework, and then in November the draft budget is presented to the board. So I want to understand what the difference is between those 2 things.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking something else. Yeah, I'm going to get Tyler to come on and explain those 2.
Or can you hear me all right? Just a quick thumbs up from everyone if you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
We can hear you, but not super well.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit, maybe not, but go ahead.
Better at all now?
I can hear you fine, Tyler.
Okay, perfect. I'll go with it.
Yeah, it could just be me. And anyone has a mic on, please consider muting.
Okay, thank you. So the framework is really what the difference between the 2 is. Basically the framework would be the chief is coming forward with the known pressures, the new deliverables and initiatives that he wants to take on in the budget, and contractual obligations that are coming through. So this is basically high level overall, what does the board kind of want included in the budget? Then the detail or the draft proposed operating budget, that's where you're getting into the details, where we're going to provide that the level of analysis that the board was looking for, the line by line budget that will go in front of the board to consider.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner Akindoju?
Thank you. If you agree that the budget framework would mean the same thing as budget assumptions, I will take that question answer first before I go to the next one. Would it be the same thing as budget assumptions?
I'm not sure who should
Tyler
answer that.
gone?
Jerry, maybe you should answer that one.
So yeah, as Tyler said, the framework is again, when the chief comes forward, he's looking for input into the budget. He's looking for talk about the pressures that go into the budget. That is where the board can certainly provide any feedback of things certainly that they'd like to see within the budget, and then that can go forward when we build a target and be built into the details that come back to the board. Tyler, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
I think you've answered my question, and I just want to drill on that. The budget assumption actually is the basis for the budget. It gives us a full understanding of where the figures come. For me, it's more important to me how those figures were derived more than the figures itself. So the budget assumption will be the stronger part of the budget for the board to deliberate upon than just the figure. Figures sometimes, other than comparatives, don't make any more sense to us, to me particularly, than the framework or the assumptions, how we arrive at those figures. Just a contribution.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. Okay, we'll now revert back to, we'll move on to 10.22, which is revisions to approve 2023 meeting schedule. We'll need to have a motion to put that on the floor. And then we'll ask the Ian McLean, the municipal clerk, to speak to it. Someone like to make that motion?
I can do that one as well, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Blackburn.
I move that the Board of Police Commissioners appoint the chair and/or the vice chair. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. I move that the Board of Police Commissioners approve the revised 2023 meeting schedule as outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report dated July 20th, 2023. I so move.
Is there a seconder? Second by Commissioner Akindoju. Anyone like to, Ian, can you speak to that first?
Thank you, Chair. This report just is updating the schedule to reflect some of the conversations that have been having with the board, trying to put in some additional meeting hold times if needed for the rest of the year and incorporate the report that you just approved from Finance.
Thank you. So the way I'm just going to ask a question myself because I'm not seeing anyone else, but the way I'm reading it is that we're showing right up till to date, which is the existing schedule that we followed. And then we are incorporating a second meeting time because of the pressures that we have experienced around calling special meetings or extra meetings in order to accommodate all the issues, all the meetings, public meetings and deliberations we have to have. So we're building them in for the rest of the year. In some cases, they may not be needed, but to be sure, we want to make sure that everyone has as much leeway and in their scheduling to be able to accommodate them successfully. So that's really what this is achieving. Any further questions on that or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. Thank you. Now we will revert back to 7.4, which are the Halifax Regional Police recruiting and staffing update presentation by Chief Kinsella.
Thank you, Chair. And I see our Presentation is being put up. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for the opportunity to bring you this update. I want to provide some information on the status of staffing, attrition, recruitment efforts within HRP. So the intent is to give you some overall context on issues that policing organizations are facing, including us here at the HRP, provide you some facts on where we are with our staffing numbers, and most importantly, give you an overview of what we are doing to address the situation, both in the short and long terms. Next slide, please. There are 4 broad areas that we're going to be covering today: recruitment as a policing-wide issue, stats, context, and steps taken recently, and of course, recent budget requests, and we are coming into that again. And our new process, I think, will be an excellent one. And then some of the longer-term actions we're going to talk about. Next slide, please. So there are a number of common themes and contexts that we are seeing across policing right now. It is very much on the minds of police leaders across the country, and a variety of measures are being discussed. Some of the things that we know the policing profession currently faces is member shortages, agencies facing rapid attrition, retirement, and unfortunately resignations. A large number of job openings mean there are greater opportunities for movement, large retirement projections in the years ahead, and certainly burnout that is still being felt from all the work we've done in COVID. And of course, recently, I can't underestimate all the work being done across many first responders and others with some of the crises we've faced recently. Still seeing some negative sentiment towards the profession, and together we are looking at a number of measures. And we're working in a number of areas to mitigate the challenges, and I'll talk about this a little bit as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please. The next few slides, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but they are in the packages if you're looking for extra information. Maybe you've had a chance to look at it already. There have been several studies and reports, not only from across Canada, but also North America, pointing to the recruitment challenge in recent years that everyone is feeling. This study here is from the Police Research Executive Forum, and the common theme is services are saying large amount of attrition in the form of retirements and resignations, and recruitment efforts are struggling to keep up. Next slide. And this is just another helpful study for the board to look at. Again, along the same lines, there's a real challenge currently of balancing member departures with what is being gained through recruitment efforts. Next slide, please. And I really think this quote from the Chief of Montreal Police sums it all up. I won't read it, but through all the efforts in Montreal, they're basically adding 10 people a year, which far underscores what they need. Next slide. And just a couple of articles that show the breadth of the challenge, not only here in Nova Scotia, but in British Columbia, and of course, by services in Ontario. Next slide. And finally, some further references. Again, I won't go into them all, but policing is an honorable profession and members are doing admirable work in challenging times. Next slide. I just want to speak now about some of the stats and facts that are specific to the Halifax Regional Police. Next slide. So here we can see that over the next 7 years, these are the numbers of sworn members that are eligible to retire. The number is big in 2023 because not everyone will go this year. So some of that will carry over to the next year. But basically, we're looking at 208 sworn members eligible over the next 7 years. I've talked a lot about our cadet science program and the work being done by our trainers. And I'll talk a little bit later about our class that just graduated. And we're going to need to do 1 class a year for the next 7 years through our cadet science program, just to stay ahead of this number. And we're committed to doing that work and we'll continue. Next slide, please. So this just gives a graph that is consistent with what we're seeing across the country. And these are officers leaving HRP 2011 to 2023 year to date, which is June 30th. And members are leaving through resignations, either to look at a different lifestyle, different career options that are being offered by different agencies, or to be close to family, return home, or simply looking to retire. Next slide. And the flip side, we're seeing good recruitment as well. So these are the officers that are joining HRP. And this is where our collective actions come in, and there's a lot of good work being done. CAO is working with us, labor relations, HRM, the HRPA. We're all kind of working together on a number of things that, again, I'll talk about a little bit later. And as you can see, due to the combination of our successive cadet classes, experienced police officers that we were hiring, and additional FTEs that were approved in 2022-23, we're basically addressing the challenge. Now, that's mid-year, and other things are going to be happening as we go along in the next 5 months. But as of July or June 30th, we were doing pretty well. Next slide, please. And this here just shows a bit of a balance sheet as of June 30th that shows how we've been doing. And as I said, we still have 5 months more to go, and we will see some more departures. And we will continue to work on our experienced police officer hires, and know that we still have to continue that work. Next slide, please. Just very quickly, I just wanted to put up a couple slides, provide just a refresher on budget requests that have been forwarded over the past few years. And if you've had a chance to look at them, or when you do, I'm not going to go through them all. You'll see that they were all brought ahead with much thought and focus on priorities. And it was all during some very difficult times during the pandemic. And the green lines were approvals. We also saw some of the requests did not get approved. Next slide, please. And certainly as we move forward, we will continue to carefully evaluate our staffing needs and bring appropriate sworn and civilian staff enhancements through our new budget process. And I very much look forward to having those discussions with the board so we can, together agree on what direction we should be going. And I look forward to that discussion and input. And next slide, please. So just some examples of our current related efforts to address the situation. They fall in a number of categories. Those that enable us to hire new offers directly through recruitment or our EPOs, but also the short and long-term supports that we need for officers to retain and attract them as an organization, as well as work towards wellness and support. And I presented on that a number of times at various board meetings, so I won't go into too much into it, but you can see there, and I won't list them all: critical incident stress management, our safeguarding program, additional health staff that was recently approved, our peer support program, and reintegration, and our active sergeant program, just to name a few. Next slide, please. Just like to talk a little bit about the root causes and some of the longer term planning that's going on collectively through various business units and the union. Next slide, please. So it's well known that first responders are at higher risk for many health concerns. And of course, being a first responder takes huge toll, not only on physical health, but also on mental health. For our police officers, our booking officers, our dispatch operators, it's not a matter of if they will experience trauma, rather than and how much will be experienced. And currently we're experiencing some shortages in capacity, and there are a number of employees off work. But we do need to be cognizant of the ripple effect, financial costs, burnout, decreased ability to cope, to name a few. And ultimately, a lot of these pressures and challenges results in more people being absent from the workforce. Next slide, please. Long-term absences for the purpose of the report are defined as an absence of 30 days or longer. The data presented in the long-term absence graph represents all employees at HRP, sworn and civilian. The reason I just wanted to add it in there, and you have seen this before, I just wanted to, because it comes out of the understaffing report done by Melanie Gibson. It does show that we're going in the right direction, which is a good thing, but we do recognize that there is much work to be done. Next slide, please. And this graph here just shows long-term absence by hours and type. And, this again is from the report by Melanie Gibson. I wanted just to add it. There's a number of factors that contribute to this. But again, the last couple of years, 21 and 22, we are kind of trending in the right direction, and we hope to continue that work collectively. Next slide, please. And the implementation of the related report, that's the one done by Mel. You would have gotten that a few months ago. We have had good discussion. And, through the foresight of the board, we now have our first in-depth study, which commits us to some recommendations. And we're working closely with the CAO. She's leading our group, and we're working with HRM, labor relations, Human Resources and the HRPA, the union, on the implementation of the various aspects and recommendations in the report. Next slide, please. And just very quickly, I wanted to give a quick update. There's lots of work to be done, but on the short to medium term report recommendations, you can see them all there. And we're actually meeting as part of a subcommittee reporting up through the CAO. And we're meeting next Tuesday. Britt Wilson is chairing our subcommittee working group, and we will be bringing more formal information to the CAO in due course as we move through the recommendations. And next slide, please. And this is just some of the medium to long-term report recommendations and, you know, some of the status of where they sit. And, you know, I think we're really headed in the right direction. And council was supportive, and you as a board were supportive for our focus on prevention and the budget approval of the psychologist and the occupational therapy nurse. And next slide. And that's the end of my presentation. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to bring a quick update, and I'll take any questions if the board has any.
Thank you, Chief. I'll start with Commissioner Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just, my only question was, do you conduct exit interviews with staff who are leaving for whatever reason? Because I see that, you know, the numbers, the data is there, and we can see the numbers, but I guess for me, what's missing is the story behind those numbers. So, so yeah, I guess the question is, do you conduct exit interviews with all staff leaving for whatever reason, and sort of help use that information to help inform the hiring?
So through you, Chair and Commissioner, thank you for the question. The answer is yes, we do. They are completed. I don't personally do them, but they're completed by human resource staff. And you know, not every member takes advantage. And I think it depends, you know, the reasons why they're leaving. But we do have fairly good uptick. I get general information related to that. We don't often get a lot of, you know, specific information on, you know, what they might be being offered at other organizations if they're resigning to go join another policing organization. We do sometimes hear, you know, anecdotal or information that may or may not be totally accurate. But what I can tell you is we had a resignation this week, unfortunately, and it was an officer, sworn member of HRP, and was moving to another organization within the province. And that member was simply returning home to be with family. They have a young family and they have young children, and they decided to move back so they could be closer with family and be, you know, in the presence of other family members as the children grew up. And interestingly enough, I got a call from that municipal chief to let me know that it was happening and that they were looking at hiring. So, you know, these things are going to happen. And I think, and the member did reach out to me and connect with me directly, and I connected back, and I communicated that we certainly understand family first. We have to have those supports and those things available to us. So that's just one example. There's many others. We're gathering the information as best we can and continually asking people to share that with us. And I can also tell you that I have had discussions with the CAO, and we're working on, you know, retention and attraction programs that we'll be bringing forward once we get her approval. And you know, we're heading in, I believe we're heading in the right direction. And it really is a competitive market right now. And, you know, other organizations are responding and making themselves attractive. And we're still attractive. We've got experienced police officers that are being interviewed on a regular basis. We expect to hire more experienced police officers in September. And we have, you know, great attraction for Nova Scotia and HRM in particular. A lot of people want to come and work here. So we're doing what we can to do our piece to bring them here.
All right. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Giles. Oh, you're on mute. Should be good now.
Thank you, Chair. And Chief, thank you for that presentation. It's good to see the axis on the graphs going in the right direction. But there's got to be an elephant in the room. According to your acting union chief, the pay is pretty good. The pension opportunities are generous. The benefits are excellent. Yet we sometimes, in certain circumstances, see as many as 4 in 10 of police officers suffering from mental health issues, stress, burnout, et cetera, et cetera. So the elephant in the room has got to be the working conditions. And what, if anything, do we do about that? How do we address that? And by working conditions, there's a lot in that basket. Police officers, like many other members of many other professions, tend to see the sorrier and the seamier side of life most of the time, not always, but most of the time. We are now in a society where police officers are unfortunately routinely disrespected and denigrated, notwithstanding the strengths of the services that they bring, bearing in mind that not all of those services are strengths amongst all of those officers. We've transitioned from a society which is, to a society such as it is now, from a society when you wouldn't castigate a police officer any more than you'd castigate your family doctor or your neighborhood priest, your parish priest. So what are we doing? What are we doing about that? What is that big picture? What is the magic bullet to say, this is now a great job with great opportunities, and you can come here and you don't have to worry about stress and burnout?
So thank you for the question, Commissioner, and through you, Chair. You've laid it all out, Commissioner, that it's a very complex situation. It is a very difficult profession that members find ourselves in. There is a general, as you've said, there's a general lack of respect for the police in certain areas. By and large, I think most people are happy that the police are there and appreciative of the job, but we do hear it, and the members hear it. And when they hear it, and they've gone out and they've worked hard all day, then it is a little bit defeating, and it is for all of us. Certainly, we're all faced with that. So, I don't know that there is any magic bullet. I don't know that there's anything singularly that we could push a button and make everything better. I think we do have to do incremental things that I believe we are trying to do. The stat on occupational stress injuries that members are feeling, that's pretty consistent across the country and North America, which I think the board is aware of. And we're collectively working on it through my work with the CACP. I sit as a board of director, my work on the Nova Scotia Chief of Police Association, I sit as a director. We're regularly having these discussions. Further to that, we have introduced and are paying very close attention to things that we can do to help our members, and in advance try to identify some of the pressures and challenges they're facing. Hence our request in the last budget cycle for the psychologist and the occupational safety nurse. Both of those individuals will greatly help us. They're working in other areas. I think they're going to help us do some of that preventative work. And I also think they're going to not only help us keep people from going off, but for those that may be off, may help us get them back a little sooner. And develop a long-term psychological wellness strategy. That's kind of what we're looking to obtain. So we've got the reintegration program, we've got the psychologist coming on board, we've got the nurse coming on board. But beyond that, we have to continually work on the environment for our police officers. So we have a new building on the books coming for police. It's been in the budget for quite some time, and lots of discussion going on that. I recently met with HRM staff to get that back activated again, and that's something that we definitely need. I've also had conversation with the CAO, and she is supportive with doing those refinements and refurbishing of our local facilities to try to make things more palatable and comfortable for our not only officers, but our sworn members and others throughout the organization. So we've recently had some really good discussion with the union and Acting President Perry, and she has been quite engaged. I talk to her just about every day. And as part of our work on the subcommittee of the understaffing report with Mr. Wilson and Deputy McLean and Superintendent Simmons and Darla and Perry Estefan from the union, we are trying to brainstorm and come up with some of those things that might help incrementally increase officers' comfort level. Trying to make sure that they have the right vehicles. We work with HRM fleet on that. They supply our vehicles, so we're working on that. We've just recently ordered new radios, and the list goes on. So we're continually working on those kind of things. And while we strategize more broadly across the country, this is really happening in a number of places, and we're doing everything we can to make those changes. And again, when we converse with the board in the budget process, I'm sure the board will have some input and have some ideas for us that we very much welcome hearing and moving forward with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Akindoju, please.
Thank you very much through you, Chair, and thank you, Chief Dan. In case I missed this, please just correct me. Just further to Commissioner Gavin's suggestion. Do you have a list of how many officers we have attracted, been able to attract from other divisions or other locations in the last 1 to 2 years and their levels?
I don't have that exact number handy, Commissioner, and through you, the chair. I have reported on it in the past, and I apologize. I can get that for you.
Chair, I would ask that we get a report on how many officers we've been able to attract and their various levels. That's okay.
But what I can tell you, actually, just from my presentation, is that from 2019 to 2023, that was in there, and we had 121 leave, and we gained 137. So if you want more detail than that, I'm happy to get it. They left through a various different means, whether it could be resignation, could be retirement, could be termination in some instances. And then our gains of 137, this is as of June 30th. And the other thing I would say is that number fluctuates fairly quickly. We have had other resignations since June 30th. We've actually also had others indicate their intention to retire. So from 2019 to 2023, we have gained 137 sworn officers.
So my question is, I'm not looking for new commissioned officers. I need those we've been able to attract at different levels, except for those commissioned officers or newly commissioned officers at entry level.
So you're looking, just so I'm clear, you're looking for our civilian members that we would have attracted during the same time period?
No, sorry, not civilian members, police force members that could have been, we are losing to other places, either through salary increase or family location. And I'm looking for how many we've been able to attract. One, due to our beautiful location, Halifax or Nova Scotia, or two, true salary or whatever at that level. And what are their levels other than newly commissioned officers?
Yeah, so you're looking specifically for experienced police officers that we have attracted.
That's okay.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So we've attracted from all over Canada, mostly constables, or actually all constables, experienced police officers, a lot from Alberta, mostly from Alberta. A lot of them are returning home. But we have attracted from the Canadian military, from policing partners within Nova Scotia. So they come from all different areas and all different services.
So I will be able to articulate that more when we know the comparison of those who have left and those who have been able to attract within the same period. That's really what I'm looking for.
Okay, we'll put our mind around that and prepare that information for you.
Thank you. Commissioner Critchley.
Thank you so much, Chief, for the presentation. I guess along the same lines as Commissioner Akindoju, I really appreciated having on your last two slides there, the sort of chart with the recommendations and the progress on those. It's good to know that there's a committee that's been formed working on those. So I would just say if I'd encourage, and I know you will keep us apprised, but if we could just have sort of regular updates about that. I know there was a motion passed to bring a sort of a plan back to the board for implementing some of those recommendations. And, this is a great first start at looking at, what's been implemented, what's in process and things like that. But if you're able to come back, sort of periodically with a little more information, I know that would be much appreciated.
Through you, Chair, yes, absolutely, Commissioner, that is the plan. And we'll do that in conjunction with the CAO and all of us working together on the report. And And I'm sure even, and I've had this conversation, Acting President Perry is willing to come and, appear with the board as well to have some conversation if we get to that point.
Becky, you're on mute. Chair Ken. I'm not quite sure what the issue is. That was my question. I appreciate the chief's answer.
Okay, was that satisfactory, Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I see a message from Becky. She's having issues with her connection, so I'll just take over as chair. Anyone else want to speak once before Gavin speaks a second time? Commissioner Blackburn, Commissioner Thomas. No, all good. Okay, Commissioner Charles.
And I'm back.
Yeah, thanks for that. Chief, it sounds like it's a pretty full palette of recruitment initiatives. Are we inventing the wheel on some of these, or do we have pretty good templates from past experience and from other police departments going forward?
Thank you, Commissioner, and through you, Chair. I think we have pretty good templates. There's, there's like I said earlier, there's, you can only offer so many things and all of that, and we're working very diligently on that. We are trying to do some out of the box thinking, and offer some, longer term retention efforts through training and those kind of things beyond what we already do, and we do a fair bit. The other thing that, we don't know what other organizations are offering incentive-wise, because we don't always hear about them. But we are definitely having discussions to make sure that officers are, and we are appropriately compensating. But we're working on other areas that we may be able to bring forward again through the CAO, and the board will be informed, and obviously council will have to be involved. So the short answer is, and I don't want to convolute it, we're working with others. We're doing what everyone else is doing, and we're also trying to up our game in regards to incentives. And we'll continue to do that to make ourselves appealing. And the last piece I'll mention is, in the number of years that I've been involved in policing, we have seen this kind of ebb and flow, and there's times when, we're in great need of officers and things like that. We haven't had it recently, but there was also times when there wasn't a lot of turnover in policing, and instead of hiring, 50 a year, if you could get it, there was only like 5 or 10 spots available. So it is cyclic, and we do have to deal with the cycle, and we're doing our very best.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to ask questions? If not, I would like to ask a couple. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment to the chief there. I just really appreciate all the work that he's been doing here. I know I have other family in different departments, police departments across Canada here, and I know they're having the same difficulties with recruitment and retention. And it's great. I'm glad to hear that the chief and others are working forward. The CAO and the acting union president are working together to make this change happen quickly as much as you can. So I just wanted to thank the chief for his presentation, and it really did my heart good knowing that everybody's working together to recruit and retain. And I know they said there several times about the recruitment process and difficulties in other departments. I think we're all quite aware of that. So I just want to thank him for the presentation, and good luck in all the recruitment processes in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. So I have a few questions for you, Chief, and some of them may actually relate to and then require some comment from the CAO, but I'm going to start with just a couple, and then if there's no one else following me, I will ask a few more, and if there aren't, then I'll ask those as well. So in the slides you showed for 2023, 74 eligible retirees. That's a lot compared to what we will see in the future, so the future looks more encouraging. 74 is a lot this year. Have we seen some, or some of those already exit? Are they already included in some of those numbers that have been out in the media and that have been brought to us? And the other thing is it they're eligible to retire? And are you able to, I know you can't really speculate because that's their life and they make life decision changes, but would you anticipate that 74 of them would take advantage of that this year? I'm just trying to get a sense of how realistic is it that 74 members would retire this year?
So thanks, Chair, and through you to the rest of the board. So these are just projections, and these are people that have met that combination of age and service that we know of that are eligible to retire. That number doesn't change a lot. It sometimes goes up, it sometimes goes down, depending on how many people were hired at one time. So for example, the 26 that we just graduated and hired in July, they'll likely, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them will come to retirement at the same time. So those 26 will be added to the list. Not all 26 will take advantage or make the decision to leave at that time. Others might stay another 2 years or 5 years or whatever. So these are just projections that we look at, and we don't expect at all that at the end of 23, all 74 will go. And they actually, anyone that's intended to go, and I apologize, I don't have the number at the top of my head, they had to notify us within 6 months before the end of the year. So while these are eligible, the reason I presented the graph as I did, or the table, was to show, and this is part of the planning that we do, to try to stay ahead of the curve, to say, okay, how many cadet classes do we need to run of 30 or 28 to get those graduates to be able to go into the workforce? And with that notification, and the 6 months is built in there to let us know that people will be leaving at the end of the year. And we do have some that are projected to go and have put in their notice to go on January or December 31st. So that's what we kind of judge by, and that's what we work with. But we do know that of that 74 number, a lot of those will be carried over into 2024. So the number in 2024 won't be 16, it'll be 16 plus however many of the 74 don't retire. So it's just a guide. If those 74 all retired this year, we would know that already, and we would be adopting our plan to try to come up with, something different. So the other piece that we're constantly monitoring is, as I said, our EPOs. And when we bring them in, they hit the ground running and they get going. So that's really just a guide for us to kind of keep track of what potential departures might look like. And we don't know in this number how many may resign to go and join other services or anything like that, although we're doing our very best to monitor that and understand it and adapt to it.
Thank you. I'll do a couple of follow-up questions, and then I'll defer to Commissioner Blackburn, and then I'll come back. So can you tell me what your thoughts are on what the impact is on our candidates who are training with roughly a $10,000 cost to them, and then no pay while they're doing it? It's my understanding that we are attracting some little bit older candidates who might have families coming from an already well-established career. That would be a very difficult scenario for them to be in that situation. They still have families to support, and you would know as well as all of us here, the appreciation of family support in this kind of career is more important than ever. And I'm just wondering, are we at a point where we should be looking at that? The other is, as well as the EPOs, the lateral moves, where with bringing in experienced officers, are we recognizing their capacity, their training, their specialty items when they come? Because that's also, for me, I would think that's a deterrent, that if we weren't, why would they want to come here if they're coming from a already established, well-established career where they've got a bunch of training, they've got a bunch of specializations. And if they were to come here, and it might be the family draw that brings them here, it might be a number of things that could, or a child who's in university, it might be a number of things that brings them here, but it might prevent them a challenge if they're giving up some of that. So can you help me understand what is at play in relation to both of those?
Yeah, so thank you for that, Chair. Really good question. And so I'll start with our cadets. And I mentioned earlier, you know, the market changes over time, right? And our cadet program, currently each cadet does pay $10,000, you're correct. There are, you know, certain stipulations in place that cause them to have to leave jobs and all those kind of things to be able to do it. And the alternative locally in Nova Scotia is to attend the Atlantic Police Academy, which is, you know, has a cost of around $35,000, as I understand. Now, so there was a time when that course, our in-house course, was more attractive because people were able to stay at home. You know, they bought their own food, they didn't have to pay for it, those kind of things. So that's where we're at. But to your point, and I've had preliminary discussions with the CAO on this, is and our labor relations people that we're working with on our committee, is to say, how do we adapt and change? Well, one of the ways that we adapt and change to recruit is to do exactly what you said. So we're having those discussions to say, okay, let's not charge any fee, and let's set up a training program where they don't pay to come. We have to have further discussions, but it is on the table. Is paying them a salary to start, commensurate with, you know, what other organizations are doing. We're looking closely at fire and what HRFE does with their program. They bring them on early, but there are a lot of mechanisms and conversations that we have to have, and you know, considerations. Had we been at this point in the dialogue when we did our recruiting almost 2 years ago for the current program, or a year and a half ago, we might have got there in the discussion, but we didn't particularly have quite the challenge we do. So yes, you're exactly right. We are looking at that. We're considering it, and obviously we do have to, you know, make everyone aware about the implications of not having that revenue. But it's certainly something that the CAO has indicated that she is open to the discussion. The union is open to the discussion, and we're going to be having that as part of our approach in our recruitment and retention plan. We're actually, as I mentioned, I don't want to go over it, but we're meeting again next Tuesday, and to, you know, come together on those very things. So that's the cadet program. We're on it. We're going to be bringing that forward and having some good dialogue around that. The other piece is, I know you didn't specifically ask it, but again, through conversation with the CAO, and I've asked in the past for supervisor for our training program, because currently the individual that runs our training program is borrowed from patrol, creates all kind of gaps and call-ins and all of that. We're working on a comprehensive training plan with the appropriate resources that will be coming forward in the very near future to say, if we're going to run 7 courses a year, here's kind of the staffing that we need to look at. So I think that's very important to have that staff there full time, as opposed to moving between patrol and going to training and back and forth. So that's on the table. And there's other considerations. I won't go through them all today, but we are going to be bringing a number of things forward. As far as the experienced police officer program, again, we've adopted and changed our approach to make our city and our municipality more attractive, to make HRP and HRM more attractive. And we do recognize currently with hires, bring them at the rank that they left with, any qualifications that they have, whether it be DRE or breathalyzer technician, or, you know, other skill sets investigatively. We recognize those for their work here. And we are even looking at and have had the conversation of, you know, how do we better recognize years of service? We recently had a member from Calgary Police Service who moved here just to come to Nova Scotia because they wanted to come and work here with 24 years of service in in Calgary. And when I ran into my friend Mark Neufeld, who's the chief of Calgary, he was very quick to point out you got one of our best there. And, so we have to make sure that we're recognizing people as they turn over. Now, I'm sorry, I don't want to go on too far, but I just want to try to be as fulsome as I can. We do have a number of people that we hired in the last 4 or 5 years who didn't have their service recognized because it wasn't in the market program then. So we're looking at a way to recognize that, and information on that and costs associated will be coming forward in the very near future. Sorry, I'm sorry I went on that long, but I did want to give you as much information as I could.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Blackburn?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm just looking for just a quick clarification on that, what is it, 73 or 74 number that are eligible to retire this year. And I'm just wondering how many of those officers are carryover from previous years, or did all 73 of them hit that magic number this year?
No, I don't have the exact number, and I apologize through you, Chair, to the commissioner, but there would have been a number that carried over. And there will be another, this 74, I'll go out and say 60, I'm guessing, don't quote me on the number. 60 of those will probably be carried over if we have 14 retirements. And we will have known, I just don't have the update because I was going to bring this report in July, but they had up until the end of June to put forward their intention to retire at the end of the year. So that information is currently being discussed. Or not being discussed, sorry, being collected, and I just don't have it yet. But to your point, there will be a number, again, when this graph gets prepared for next year, 2024 will probably sit at 76 or perhaps 78, depending how many left. And, we want people to stay. We're looking for people to, quite frankly, hang around and not hang around, but stay with us and maybe defer retirement if they can. So we're having those discussions and dialogue. But the point is, we're trying to be as prepared as we can through our in-house classes to meet the need should we be faced with that number leaving at some particular time.
And I guess the point that I'm trying to get at as well is that this number is probably an anomaly because many folks who may have been eligible to retire over COVID probably did not. And this is a scenario that is playing out right across Canada. Would that be a good assessment?
You got it. You totally got it, Commissioner.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And I just have one more question, I think that I'll leave it there. So we've referenced the need for a new headquarters for HRP. We've referenced the work that the conversations that you've had. I recall some conversations that we've had recently around our strategic priorities, the CAO referencing the importance of it. And I can imagine that the headquarters in some of what I saw, certainly in tours that I've had and the number of occasions I've been in there, that certainly can't be helping with the I guess the morale and the spirits of people, and those all continue to weigh down on people, and then that also contributes to the capacity and the resolve to stay healthy and all those things. So it all matters. And I'm going to encourage everyone here, and although I'm kind of gonna throw it out there, Chief, and that language around their comfort I think is going to mislead what this in fact is. It's not about their comfort, it's about their capacity to do their jobs in an environment that is safe and secure and is fitting to the access to the kinds of equipment that they need, access to the kinds of computers, the safe environments, the safe space in a building around training, their own physical fitness pieces of work that they have to do and they can do within a facility like that. Obviously, the safety of the public, should any be retained in an environment like that. So I think that's critically important. And so I'm going to add to it also challenges around having appropriate equipment and having the fleet of vehicles that are required. There's some reviews that might have to happen. And so to cut to the chase, what can we as a board, and this might be a question for you, Kathy, as CAO, what can we as a board do to support the capacity or the council considerations around budgeting for that? Is that something that might come forward by way of a budget request through us that we then make recommendations to council for? Would it be potentially a letter of support and advocacy for it? Because obviously we as a governance body, we need to know that the members who are serving and the police force that we have are in adequate conditions in buildings that are adequate for them to support the work that they do. And if they're not, we need to be part of making sure that it does get there. And I know that council in the past has put that on the table, but now it seems to have drifted off. And I'm hearing now that I feel like it's getting resurrected. What role can we play in that?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. You know, advocacy of the councillors who are members of the Board of Police Commissioner when the budget and business plan go to council is certainly a primary role. I think another thing that, you know, I've been talking to the chief about and have requested is, and he's working on for me, is recommendations with respect to the facility requirements. You know, what are the immediate things we need to be looking at versus, you know, what gets left to get addressed at the in the new building. That's certainly something that when we have it, it should be shared with the board. But the other thing that's been going through my mind recently is I'm not sure what the maturity of the asset management strategies and inventory management is for Halifax Regional Police and how the municipality is supporting the police in that aspect. And of course, we have an asset management group that is within finance, the finance and asset management department. So I think maybe that's something I'll take offside and talk to the chief and talk to our managers and directors responsible for asset management, just to get a sense on the key assets for Halifax Regional Police. You know, what is their value? What is the average age? Are we adequately planning for replacement? And make sure that if we don't have a well-documented asset management strategy for each of the key types of assets, that we'll develop one.
You're on mute, Becky.
Thank you. I think we'll leave it there, move on with the agenda. Thank you, Chief, for the report. Thank you, commissioners, for great questions. And this has been, I think, very helpful to everyone. So we'll move on now to item number 8, correspondence, and ask the clerk if we have any correspondence, if any correspondence was received.
Chair Kent, no correspondence was received for this meeting.
Thank you. And are there any petitions in 8.2? Any petitions to be presented?
Chair Kent, no petitions were submitted to the clerk's office for this meeting.
Thank you. And we have no further presentations, no information items brought forward. So now we're going to go to 10.1, Halifax Regional Police, Royal Canadian Mounted Police Chief updates. So I'm going to suggest that we start with Chief Kinsella, and then we'll go on with Superintendent Jason Popkick. So Poppick, so that you can see how the chief does. One chief does it, and maybe you can figure out what your approach will be, Jason.
Okay.
Commissioner Critchley, you have your hand up. Is that something you want?
Yeah, I just have a quick question of clarification, Chair Kent. There were a number of information reports provided with the agenda that were deferred from the previous meeting.
Can you remind us of those? Because I'm seeing on our notes here that there were none brought forward.
Okay, there's an information report dated July 6th, Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner Review Report of July 14th, 2022, information item number 5. There's information report dealing with the Bryan report, information, item number 10.2.4. And then one dealing with the Nova Scotia Police Review Board recommendations. So 3.
So just for clarification, were they asked to be brought forward by a commissioner to bring them forward to an agenda item? Or I'm not sure what we're getting at here.
I'm just a little unclear. I have questions about these information reports. They were on last month's agenda. They had to be deferred because we didn't have time to deal with them. So I'm
Okay.
just wanting clarification when I should ask questions about them.
Sure, let's ask Andrea.
So Chair Critchley, are you talking about, so the items from our last meeting that were now included as information reports on this agenda? Is that what you're asking clarification about?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so those information reports, if you wish to bring those forward for discussion, they had to be brought forward to discussion at a future meeting of the board. So actually the next meeting of the board in September. So if you, so which information reports are you looking to bring forward? If you can refer to them by the item number that they have on the this month's agenda.
Okay. I'd like number 3, number 4, and number 5. Sorry, that was I guess I was confused, because I thought because they were deferred from last month that we would discuss them now, especially where they're attached as information items. But if they're to be deferred again, that's fine.
No, it's the decision was made during agenda review that in order to keep this agenda manageable, we'd have them as information reports that then could be brought forward to the next meeting. So I'm confirming that you wish for information reports number 3, number 4, and number 5 to be brought forward to the September meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay. So those would be number 3 is the report about the Bryan report. Number 4 is the response regarding Halifax Regional Police Prisoner Care Facility. And number 5 is the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner review.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. I'll make note of that. And they'll be brought forward to the September 6th meeting.
Commissioner Critchley, can people hear me?
Yes.
Can people? The rule is that when something comes as an information item, then in order to have it debated or dealt with, you give notice and it's brought in at the next meeting.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with you, Chief Kinsella.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the commission. I just would like to start tonight with my updates, just to acknowledge the tremendous loss of life that occurred after the storm and flooding last month. Our deepest sympathies go out to the families and loved ones of those who were tragically lost. I also want to thank the many first responders who worked throughout the storm and in its aftermath. And I did have the opportunity to visit the OSC over the weekend of the storm and check in with members that were there. And I do want to give kudos to Erica Fleck and all staff involved for the patient, compassionate, and professional response during the crisis. As I mentioned, I won't go on too much about this, just want to mention that last month, we did welcome our 26 new police officers as part of the cadet class, and I want to thank those of you that were able to attend. They've now been on the job for nearly a month, and I certainly want to thank them for their dedication and hard work, and certainly the officers who are training and mentoring them for their hard work and dedication as well. Recently, officers in the Guns and Gangs unit, along with the emergency response team, completed a search of a residence in Halifax. They seized a gun with ammunition and drugs. Unfortunately, this is happening. Unfortunately, it's happening far too often. And I just wanted to mention that year to date, 245 firearms have been removed from our streets. And this is the work that officers are doing day in, day out to make our communities safer. And finally, I just want to note that, and I'm sure everyone knows, the North American Indigenous Games were an incredible and fantastic event. I did have the opportunity to go to the opening ceremonies and visit some of the sites along the way. And while the storm did impact some of the activities, the week was filled with amazing sporting events and talented athletes. And I do want to mention Staff Sergeant Kim Robinson of the Halifax Regional Police for her incredible contributions as the HRP security lead attached to the games. And she was embedded with the group and contributed greatly to the safety plan that we were able to deploy with members of the Games Committee and our partners, the RCMP. And subject to any questions, Chair, that is my update.
Hi, sorry, I just got lost again. For some reason, all of you disappear every once in a while on my screen. It's probably me, so I take ownership for it. Thank you, Chief, and I'll now give you the floor, Superintendent Jason Poppick.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the commission. I was going to turn this over to the Lyndon to give a presentation, as he has more continuity in regards to our operations. But the one piece that he has on there, I am acutely aware of. Before I go into the report, though, I would like to echo the chief's sentiments in regards to the floods. Our people are very tired, but very proud of the work they've done individually as well as part of a team from the fires through to the floods. It shows our ability to work in Nova Scotia and within the HRM. For the operational update, the one item they have on here that really falls into my full-time job is an update on the federal file and 3D guns. For background, CIROC is a Canadian Integrated Response to Organized Crime. It is the operational arm of the Canadian Chiefs of Police. The QPP identified a reshipper of firearms parts. It was the Major League parts. These parts go into privately manufactured guns. They're commonly called ghost guns. As the Nova Scotia arm of this cross-Canada investigation, federal police identified 3 different locations. There's one in Bedeque, there's one in Pictou, there's one in Halifax Regional. We helped do the search warrants for the 2 in the RCMP area. Halifax Regional did the one in theirs. Over 40 search sites were done across the country. It's significant with the privately manufactured guns, and it dovetails into what Chief Kinsella was saying. What we're seeing is in the Atlantic region, there's a lot of privately manufactured firearms. In the central location, a lot of the firearms are smuggled up from the south, and in the east or in the west, they are a combination of both. It was a fantastic opportunity for us to work with other police across the country, but also was an indication of what we need to look for here in Nova Scotia. When we made entry, we did see at one site, there was a 3D gun being printed at the time of our entry. So there will be a training initiative put out in regards to it, so we can orientate other officers to what is a current threat. And I'll leave it there in sake of time, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Acting Chief. So just to be clear, are we not going to Lyndon now, or are we?
We'll go to Lyndon now, yes.
Okay, thank you. Floor is yours, Lyndon. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, issues with the mute button there. Chair, through you to council, just some high level updates. Summer's half over, it's hard to believe. Our SKU and card teams have been assisting with the watches over the summer so that everybody can have some well-deserved leave, especially after the fires, and now to echo the flooding. Going into the flooding, echo the chief and Superintendent Poppick, just a tragedy. We were lucky, and that's the word I'll use, lucky in HR or in Halifax district, that there was no serious injuries or fatalities because of the flooding, number of property damages, and road closures. And our members dealt with washed out roads and assisted with that. We're having the job that I'm filling in for now, which was Inspector Michael Flynn. That job is going to interview at the end of the month, which the chair is invited to participate in. As far as the wildfires, Inspector Addie McCallum and a team of 4 are taking on the wildfires after action report. Back in July 4th, there was a 75-year-old male located deceased in his residence in Sackville, and the file is being investigated by Major Crime as a homicide. There has been some news release on that through our Major Crime unit. Emancipation Day, which was just yesterday on August 1st, employees of the Preston RCMP joined the Preston community for a march throughout the community and hosted a barbecue at the detachment. And there's also a large community march celebrations this Saturday, starting at the Black Cultural Center. On July 7th, as Lower Sackville RCP entered into an investigation of a child pornography, sexual assault, sexual touching, and child luring. 57-year-old male was later arrested, and a large quantity of images were obtained, as well as firearms and other relevant evidence. This appears to have been ongoing for decades. The investigation has become a large scale, and CID is taking the lead on it. Again, we were proud and pleased to have some representation at the North American Indigenous Games, the opening ceremonies, and those are our updates, Chair.
Thank you. And are there any questions or comments from any commissioners to either of the chiefs? Nope, I'm seeing any. We'll move on. Thank you all very much. Keep up the great work. We now have did I miss something?
No, Chair. 10.3.1 is next on the agenda.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So 10.3.1, that Commissioner Critchley, can you take the chair, please? I'd like to put this one forward.
Sure, happy to.
Thank you. When you're ready.
All right, if you want to read the motion or?
Yeah, thank you, please. I'd like to move that the Board of Police Commissioners appoint the chair and or the vice chair to serve as, I'm going to say and, because I think, I don't know how, if that's proper to put in an and or in a motion anyway, that the Board of Police Commissioners appoint the chair and the vice chair to serve as the board's representative on the committee preparing the staff report on the integrated operating model.
Is there a
Second.
All right, motion's on the floor. Anyone with comments or questions? You could just use the hand button. Commissioner Akindoju.
My question is it and or?
I'll let Chair Kent answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. I think that we can leave it as, I would like to leave it as and then it allows for one or the other. So I'd like to just, if it's friendly and we can do it, strike out or.
My assumption is where the chair is not available, the chair, I think the position allows that the vice chair will be a replacement. So it's unnecessary to have two names. All I want to know is there one person representation or a two-person representation?
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll look to the CAO or the chair.
Our intent when we wrote it was to have both the chair and the vice chair invited to the meetings and make it clear that as long as we could get one of them to attend, essentially, you know, the working group meeting would continue. Our concern was if we didn't have any representation available. So we're viewing if 2 people come, that's great. As long as we can get 1, we're good to continue.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, CAO. I'll go to Commissioner Giles.
Oh, yeah, no, finished. That's okay.
Oh, sorry, do you have another question or?
It's not another question, it's just a follow-up of that. I just want clarity.
Go ahead.
Just for clarity, I mean, can we vote for 2 people? If we're voting for 1, I am saying that if the chair is not available for any meeting, the chair would automatically devolve back to the vice chair. I think that's what I understand. But in this case, are we asking for 1 or we're asking for both? And it's okay with me if we ask for both. I just want that level of clarity in this motion.
Okay, thank you. I see Chair Kent has her hand up. Just want to clarify with respect to the question or?
Yeah, as the mover, I purposefully said "and" for the same reasons that the CAO explained. I think it's in our best interest from a board's perspective to allow for both. And if one or the other can go, then we've covered off. But at this stage, I'd like to see both.
Okay, thank you.
And that's
Commissioner
also-
Akindoju, does that answer your question? Or?
I'll leave my motion there.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Giles.
Yeah, we should constrain ourselves to the extent that we can from a common governance perspective, that the board or the commission speaks through its chair, and its chair is its face for all intents and purposes. If for any particular task, there's a desire to have both the chair and the vice chair present, so that there's a continuity of the subject matter of discussion, I don't have any problem with that. I'm not sure that that Commissioner Akindoju has a problem with it either. I would eschew the use of the term "and/or." It's the product of a lazy mind that doesn't know what it wants.
Okay, thanks for the comment. I'm not sure. I see us all as being on the same page, that the CAO has clarified the intention. We all seem to be on the same page. I'll just look to Commissioner Blackburn and Commissioner Thomas. If they have any questions or comments.
No comment or question at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Thomas, I can't see you on my screen. Oh, your hand is up.
I had no comments and questions as well, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions or comments either, so I'll just call for the question.
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I take the chair back? Mr.
Feel
Vice.
free. That's a lot of responsibility. You know, I can only do a few minutes at a time.
Thank you. So I'm going to move, and again, recognizing that we may go back and revisit Commissioner Akindoju's request. Commissioner updates, are there any from any commissioners? No, hearing none. Any added items? I don't think so with the clerk's approval. Wasn't aware of any.
There were
Item-
no.
Yeah. Items for future consideration. I think there was any. There were no in-camera items. Are there any notices of motion from any commissioners? No. So at this stage, I'm going to ask, oh, there's 2 hands up. Are they up for this?
Madam Chair, I just under Commissioner updates.
Okay, go ahead.
Just wanted to give all an update on the Great Cookie Caper
yes.
in preparation. The supplies have been ordered and are due to arrive on Friday. So I'll be spending the long weekend filling candy bags and decorating them for the breakfast at the convention. Thank you.
Thank you.
And they will be ready for August 9th for any shipping purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blackburn. I'm going to fill in some gaps for those who are wondering what the heck is a cookie caper. So the committee that is part of the planning exercise to host the Canadian Association of Police Governance Conference next year, we gathered and we created a theme that we agreed on a theme for next year's conference. We called it Where Governance Meets Public Safety. the Halifax approach. We clearly it's around the governance theme, and it's about the public safety perspective that we are all in the throes of in our mandate. But we also wanted to play on the Halifax way of hosting conferences and the fun and excitement and the great things why people would want to come to our municipality and our province and our city to attend a conference. So we're playing up on that, and we have the ability to, I will be speaking on behalf of our board as the host board at the final breakfast at the conference. And while I have you, I'll update you that I spoke with the mayor today, and the mayor and I will be doing a very short video of excitement to invite and entice them to come to Halifax along within our theme. So that's all good news. And that's related to the cookie caper, because we were trying to give out cookies at the breakfast again to invite people, but we now are moving to candy. So that's that. Commissioner Giles.
Cookies and candy for breakfast. Somebody is thinking after my own heart, I have to say. I'm not sure where it gets caught in the amalgam of the last number of things which were run through very quickly. But Chair, you're aware of the fact that I, as a commissioner, received notification from Norm Collins, who's the local Safe Streets guru, asking a number of questions about traffic enforcement. I understand that Mr. Collins has been informed on behalf of the commission of the appropriate means and methods to put a matter before the commission for its consideration. And for the record, that information having been provided to me early in the day, I have not reached back to Mr. Collins on the basis of our previous discussions that communications on behalf of all of us should be coming from our chair and only from our chair. And unless she's not available, and in the event that she's not available, our vice chair.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to ask for a vote on whether or not the commission is open to a revisiting of the motion put forward. Which one was it, Yemi?
The suggestion, it's 7 point, I thought that was there. Okay. 7.2.
Okay, 7.2. So we need 2/3 majority. So all in favor of revisiting and the motion that was put forward today and approved.
So Chair, we'll need a seconder on that motion of reconsideration, please.
Okay, so Yemi is the mover and Commissioner Blackburn's the seconder.
Okay, thank you.
And so just help me, Andrea, understand how the wording, or Marty, how the wording should take place here for reconsideration.
I think that is sufficient, that we're going to be reconsidering the vote on item 7.2.
So would Yemi now put an amendment forward, and we would consider the amendment and then re-vote on the main motion as amended?
No, we
First,
actually have to.
no, yeah,
Sorry.
Before he puts a new motion forward, right? Or an amendment, you need to consider the motion for reconsideration first. Okay, so the first step is for the board to vote that they're prepared to reconsider it. Then after that, the matter's open again, right?
I think we just did that, did we not?
No.
Oh, okay.
We just had the mover and a seconder. We just need a vote on whether or not the board wants to reconsider item 7.2.
And so do we need a mover and a seconder for the reconsideration?
Yes, and we have that. We have Commissioners Akinduju and Blackburn.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to work this out in my head, and then I lost it. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
No.
And I think we have 2/3.
We do have 2/3, Chair, yes.
The motion's carried. So now, the motion was approved as it is here. We're going to reconsider it. So the floor is open now to any reconsideration of this particular motion.
So I believe Commissioner Akinduju, you had comments of a suggested amendment to part 2 of the motion, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, if you can just put forward what amendment you wish to make to that, and we can decide whether or not it would be a friendly amendment or if we're going to vote on it as a separate amendment.
I do not know if it's friendly or separate, but I would.
It will be
all I'm
up to
asking-
Commissioner. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, all I'm asking is to add the word respond to homelessness. And I can tell you why I'm thinking so.
I'll
And
second,
to-
I'll second his motion. Oh, I'm the chair. I can't. Can someone else? We need a
It's not-
seconder for that.
It's not clear what the motion is.
If the motion is to add a word before homelessness, which is response. So it's policy related to, in number 2, policy related to policing and response to homelessness for Board of Police Commission's consideration.
And I can put a bit of clarity to that if you want. Gary.
But first, Commissioner Akindoju, we need a seconder for that motion.
Oh, okay.
Then we can debate it.
All right, I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Blackburn. And now Commissioner Akindoju, you can speak to it, your motion.
Thank you very much. The only reason why I've asked that we add that word is, from my own perspective, I do not think the police manage or would manage homelessness. They respond to issues regarding homelessness. And just saying, writing a policy and homelessness is, for me, out of context. But the response to, because they're always, I might be wrong, called to deal with homelessness. In most cases, probably in all cases, called to deal with issues around homelessness. So it's their response. So the policy around their response will be most adequate for this one. That's my simple.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak to it? Go ahead, Harry.
I mean, I would just say in the staff report, it says what we're looking at. It says a discussion, police interactions with the homeless community is becoming an increasingly important issue in cities across the country. So, I mean, I think I don't have any problem with what Yemi or Commissioner Akindoju's put forward, but I think it's already there already. So I'm not, but if he's concerned about it and he wants the wording added, I don't have any problem with it. I agree with him that it's not the role of the police to simply criminalize homeless people. The issue is responding to, issues arising or relating to individuals who are homeless. So I have no problem with that. But I just would make clear that is the intention of this subcommittee, to work on that.
Thank you. I'll follow up on that, since seeing no hands up right now, that I think this is the proper wording. In fact, in our strategic priority setting, we landed in the same place, which is debating over how do we articulate the role of policing within any responses, because that's really what their job is. It's not eradicating homelessness. That job is beyond the policing services. It's how we serve, how our police service responds to those things related to it. So I think this is a good amendment. In fact, I don't even think we need, and we should I think it should be policy related to policing response to homelessness. So, and yeah, that's my point. If there's no further questions, which I'm not seeing in comments, we might want to also ask Marty if this would be considered friendly.
I think it is friendly. So, but I
do the
guess that's
movers-
up to the person who
Do-
originally.
Yeah, do the movers and seconders consider it friendly?
I don't have any issue with it.
I consider it fair.
Seconder has no issue with it either.
And Yemi, what was it you wanted to offer there?
No, I said it's friendly for me. I mean, it just makes a bit of sense. And that's why I had to bring us back to this, because I think it's really important for us not to make certain mistakes.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any other comments. Would someone like to call the question?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. All
So,
right.
Chair, that is the vote on Yemi's proposed amendment.
Okay.
So we'll have to have a second vote for the amended motion.
Okay. So we will now revisit the original motion, which was to review the board of police commissioners' policies related to extra duty and off-duty employment, and in consultation with the chief, draft recommended changes and additions to the board of police consideration. And number 2, as amended, in consultation with the chief, draft a board of police commissioners' policies related to policing response to homelessness for the board of police commission's consideration. Any comments or debate on that?
I'll move the motion as amended.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Commissioner Akindoju. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. So we are at the end of our agenda, and our next meeting date is September the 6th. I encourage you, before we call for adjournment, to look at the newly created and approved schedule for the remainder of the year and plug those into your calendar. And then wish you all a great evening. There's a little bit left, and I'd ask for an adjournment motion. Moved by Commissioner Giles. Thank you. Jason, I hope that wasn't too painful. We're done early. This is a good night.